Welcome to another deep dive, and this one is going to be fascinating. We're diving into a world where Incan mythology and fantasy collide, all through the lens of epic poetry.
Sounds exciting.
You bet it is. We'll be exploring Chronicles of Qhapaq Pacha, specifically the prologue and the first 7 chapters.
Okay, so we're looking at incastory.pdf.
Yeah.
Got it. And we've got the glossary, too, which is always helpful with these kinds of fantasy worlds.
Definitely. Now, what really struck me about this novel is how the author uses poetry. It's not just there for decoration. It's like woven into the very fabric of the story.
Right. It propels the narrative forward, gives us these hints about what's to come, and it just adds this whole other layer of meaning to the characters and their journeys.
Exactly. And the story kicks off with this bard, Amaru. He sets the scene. It feels like we're sitting around a campfire listening to him spin a tale.
I like that campfire image.
Mm-hmm.
And his voice, right from the start, sets this mystical and adventurous tone.
Oh, absolutely. And at scene point 1, he starts with these lines. Truth, a shimmering mirage, a fleeting gleam, a whisper in the wind, a forgotten dream, hidden in shadows, veiled in mist, a treasure sought, a sacred tryst.
It draws you in right away. You get the sense that truth is elusive, something precious, something hidden.
It really does. And the way he uses repetition, a fleeting gleam, a forgotten dream. It's like an incantation almost, emphasizing how ancient and powerful this whole search for truth is.
It's a theme that just resonates throughout the novel.
For sure. And then he goes on, and it's almost like he's giving us a sneak peek into the core of the story. In ancient halls where knowledge sleeps, the seer stone lies in slumber deep, a window to the future's keep, where destinies unfold and secrets weep.
And that, I think, is foreshadowing Killa's journey to Machu Picchu.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah. You know, the glossary mentions Machu Picchu as a sacred site for the Incas. And this seer stone, a window to the future. It just feels like the bard is preparing us for Killa's encounter with those mountain spirits, the Opus.
The ones who hold all that ancient knowledge.
Exactly.
Wow, just those few lines create so much anticipation. There's this seer stone, this window into the future, and it makes you wonder, what secrets will Killa find? What destinies will be revealed?
I know, right? And what's really interesting is the bard doesn't just introduce the story. He pops up throughout like a Greek chorus, offering his commentary, even engaging with an imagined audience sometimes.
That's a great comparison. And it's so engaging for the reader. It's like he's winking at us, reminding us that this is a story. But he's also inviting us to think deeper, to really consider the themes he's weaving.
Definitely. And he does this masterfully in scene 4.1, where he poses this question to his audience, but tell me, my friends, do you believe in fate? Or do you think these 3 souls could have chosen a different path?
I love that part. It just stops you dead in your tracks, makes you confront that age-old question, free will versus destiny. And it makes you think, are these characters really in control of their choices, or are they just playing out roles that were predetermined by some greater force?
That's the question, isn't it? And he poses it through poetry, which just adds this whole other level of emotional weight. It's not just a philosophical debate. It's something that's directly impacting these characters, their lives.
It really is. And I love how the poetry just does so much heavy lifting, foreshadowing, character development, exploring themes, world building. It's like this secret code embedded within the story.
Speaking of world building, there's this amazing verse in scene 6.1 where the bard gives us this glimpse into the origins of Qhapaq Pacha. He talks about Viracocha, the first intelligence, emerging from this primordial darkness.
Right. And he says, from the heart of this primordial darkness, he continued, emerged Viracocha, the first intelligence. Viracocha was not born of flesh or stone, but a pure consciousness, a being of light and thought. With a breath, Viracocha shake the mountains and valleys, the rivers and oceans, the sky and the stars. With a thought, Viracocha breathed life into the beings of the land, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea.
It's like a creation myth, beautifully rendered in verse. And right away, we get this idea that this world isn't just physical, it's created from consciousness, from thought.
Which ties in perfectly with that idea of the virtual realms that we get introduced to later on.
Exactly. We learn that these virtual realms, it's a way for those cosmic intelligences, these powerful beings, to actually experience what it's like to be mortal.
I was wondering about that. Why would these all-powerful beings even need to experience something like mortality?
It's an interesting question, right? And the bard puts it this way. Ah, young one, even the brightest light yearns to understand the shadows. The cosmic intelligences, for all their power, could not fully grasp the richness of mortal existence, the joy of love, the sting of loss, the triumph of perseverance. And so they crafted the virtual realms, worlds of wonder and possibility, where they could embody mortal forms and experience the full spectrum of life.
So they're seeking something that goes beyond power, something they can only find by experiencing the world through mortal eyes.
It seems that way. And that raises the stakes even higher, doesn't it? It's not just about saving one world, it's about understanding the very essence of existence itself.
This is already so captivating. And we haven't even talked about those three protagonists,
Yeah.
Killa, Intikoya, and Ayar.
Oh, they're each fascinating in their own right. And their journeys are so intertwined with the poetry. Like in scene 2.6, after Killa has that vision of Supay, that malevolent intelligence threatening the virtual realms, she receives this prophetic verse.
Let's hear it.
The path unfolds, a winding maze where shadows dance and danger sways. The threads of fate they intertwine, leading you forth to a truth divine. The visions unfold, the truth revealed. Though the cost be great, your spirit unyielded. In light and darkness, entwined and aligned. The fate of the world in your grasp assigned.
Wow, those last two lines. In light and darkness, entwined and aligned, the fate of the world in your grasp assigned.
It's chilling. Like she's being told she can't escape her destiny, but she has to choose how she faces it. Exactly. And that highlights that central conflict of the story. Choice versus fate. It's woven throughout the narrative, and we'll see it play out in all sorts of ways.
I can't wait to see how it unfolds. This is already turning out to be so much more than just a typical fantasy adventure. It's like there are layers upon layers of meaning hidden within these poems.
It's a treasure trove waiting to be discovered.
And we'll be doing just that as we continue our deep dive.
But it's not just Killa whose destiny is revealed through the poetry. The bard also uses it to foreshadow events, build suspense. Remember that verse from the prologue, the one about the seer stone?
You mean, in ancient halls where knowledge sleeps, the seer stone lies, in slumber deep, a window to the future's keep, where destinies unfold and secrets weep.
Yeah, that's the one. And he repeats it again in chapter 2, right when Killa sets off on her journey to Machu Picchu. It's subtle, but it's a powerful way to link those two events, reinforce that idea that her destiny is leading her to that sacred site.
It really makes you realize that every word, every line in those poems, it's all carefully chosen. It's guiding the reader's experience.
Absolutely. And sometimes the poetry is used to create this sense of foreboding,
Yeah.
like a hint of that encroaching darkness. Like in scene 1.6, when the Apis, those mountain spirits, sense Supay's presence. The bard paints this really chilling picture. The air crackled with an unseen energy, a tension that stretched taut as a bowstring. The Apis, their forms shimmering like heat haze, seemed to shudder as a cold wind swept through the valley. It was the breath of the Qhapaq Pacha, the shadow realm, a harbinger of the darkness that threatened to engulf the sacred realm.
The imagery there is so vivid. A cold wind swept through the valley, the breath of the Qhapaq Pacha. You can practically feel that chill, that sense of dread settling over everything.
It's powerful stuff. And it's not just an external threat. This darkness, it can corrupt from within, too. In scene 5.3, we see this with Amaru, the keeper of the Qhapaq Pacha gates. When he finally realizes the truth about the Great Reset, that cyclical destruction and rebirth of the virtual realms.
Right. For a long time, he thinks it's just a natural phenomenon. Yeah. But then he discovers it's actually orchestrated by Supay. That's got to be a pretty earth-shattering realization.
It is. And he uncovers this truth through poetry, through the cosmic quipu. Remember, the glossary defined the quipu as the system of knotted cords the Incas used to record information. But in this novel, it's more like a celestial record of history. And it's through those threads that Amaru figures out what Supay's really up to.
It's amazing how the author takes those real Incan concepts and weaves them into the story. It adds a layer of authenticity to the world building.
It does. And the poetry just enhances that. Listen to this from scene 5.3. His breath came shallow as his gaze dropped to the quipu stretched before him, its starlit threads pulsing faintly beneath his touch. The reset was not just an act of renewal, it was a battle between the celestial intelligences, those beings of light who had shaped existence, and the one who had turned against them, Supay.
It's like those threads are whispering secrets, revealing this hidden battle that's been raging for centuries.
It's a classic conflict, really. Light versus darkness. But there's a complexity to it, this depth that we see through the poetry.
Definitely. And speaking of complexity, we haven't talked much about Intikoya, the Amaru. She's such an interesting character, a creature of both light and shadow.
And her struggle to maintain that balance, that's beautifully depicted through the poetry. In scene 6.5, she's tempted by Supay. He tries to lure her to the dark side, but not with force. It's all through words, through these seductive whispers that play on her doubts, her fears.
What kind of language does he use to tempt her? I'm really curious.
He appeals to her dual nature. He says, embrace the shadows, Intikoya. They are a part of you, just as much as the light. Don't deny your true nature. You are born of the Qhapaq Pacha, and it is calling you home.
Wow. It's like he's trying to convince her that darkness is her true destiny, that she can't escape it. But she resists, right?
She does, and her defiance is also expressed through poetry. She declares, I am Intikoya, the silver moon, the bridge between light and shadow. I will not be consumed by darkness. I will choose balance, harmony, and the preservation of the sacred realm.
It's a powerful moment. She's not a pawn in this game. She has agency, the power to choose.
Exactly, and I think that choice is at the heart of the novel's whole exploration of free will versus fate. It's not about being free from destiny. It's about choosing how you face it, how you shape it with your actions.
That's a really insightful way to look at it. This isn't just a fantasy adventure. It's about taking responsibility for your own destiny.
Absolutely. And the poetry. It's the key to unlocking all those deeper meanings. It speaks to the heart, reveals truths that might stay hidden otherwise.
This deep dive has been incredible. It's like peeling back layers, and with every verse, there's a new insight waiting.
And we're not even done yet. There's so much more to explore and how the author uses poetry to weave this epic tale together. Destiny, choice, that battle between light and shadow.
I'm ready to dive deeper. Let's get to those final chapters. Okay, so last we left off, Ayar was facing down those Ukumar in that creepy cave. What happened next?
Well, he manages to fend them off, but not without realizing that that artifact, it's way more powerful than he thought. It's not just some weapon. It's like this conduit to the forces controlling the Great Reset.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a real turning point for him. Does the poetry, reflect that shift in understanding?
It does. Big time. In Chapter 7, Scene 7.6, the bard talks about the hero's trials. Listen to this. The trials these heroes face, he began, his voice a resonant chord echoing through the hushed gathering, are not mere obstacles to overcome, but crucibles that forge their spirits, tests that reveal the heroes they are destined to become.
Yeah, that encounter with the Ukumar, terrifying as it was like a necessary step for him, forged him into the hero he needs to be.
Right, and that whole transformation through trials, that's core to this whole choice versus fate thing. They're not just puppets. They're shaping their destinies through those choices they make when things get tough.
It makes sense. So then we get to the climax, all three heroes together, facing down Supay. What's the poetry like there in that final confrontation?
Well, before the battle, the bard describes their journey to the heart of the sacred realm. He calls it a pilgrimage. It's as much a spiritual journey as it is a physical one.
I can see that,
he says. Their steps fell in unison now, a shared rhythm that echoed the beating of their hearts. They walked not as individuals, but as one, their destinies intertwined, their purpose aligned. The weight of the world rested upon their shoulders, yet they did not falter. They were the chosen ones, the guardians of the sacred realm, and they would not yield to the darkness.
Wow, there's this real feeling of unity in those lines, like their individual identities kind of melt away, and it becomes this shared purpose.
And that unity, it's key to their victory. But it's not a victory through brute force or anything. In scene 9.4, right before the battle, Killa has this vision, and it changes everything.
A vision? What does she see?
She sees that the Great Reset, that whole cycle of destruction and rebirth, it's not inevitable. It was just the only solution the cosmic intelligences could come up with. But Killa, she realizes that they, the heroes, have something the intelligences don't. Unity.
So it's not just about power, it's how you use it. It's about their connection, working together as one.
Exactly. And when they realize that, it's a turning point. They can break the cycle, rewrite their destiny, like when the bard describes them confronting Supay. They stood before him, a symphony of light and shadow, their voices rising in unison, a chorus of defiance against the encroaching darkness. Their words were not weapons, but beacons of hope, illuminating the path to a new dawn.
That's amazing. So they don't defeat Supay with violence. They do it through unity, through their will, working together.
Exactly. And their victory, it's not about destruction, it's about transformation. They purify Supay, cleanse him of that corruption that turned him, evil.
That's powerful. It's not about wiping out darkness, it's about changing it. bringing things back into balance.
It really speaks to the novel's take on good and evil. There are no easy answers, no clear-cut heroes and villains. It's about understanding how complex things are, how light and shadow exist within us all.
Sounds like the author created a story that really makes you think.
Yeah.
And the poetry is what unlocks all that.
I agree. It elevates the whole story. Destiny, choice, unity, that struggle between light and shadow, it's all moving together in the poetry.
So for our listener, diving deep into Chronicles of Qhapaq Pacha, any final thoughts?
I'd say pay attention to the poetry, let it wash over you. Listen to the rhythm of the words, the images it evokes, the emotions you feel. That's where the heart of the story lies.
That's beautiful. It's been such a journey exploring this world of Incan mythology, fantasy, and poetry.
And we've only just begun to uncover its secrets.
So true. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.